Hi, my name is Raghav Priyadarshi and I am the founder of Savikalpa Sciences. I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist. However, I am trying to create an organization that becomes a global leader in cannabis, phytopharmaceuticals, and establishing an investigational R&D focused pharmaceutical company out of India. A biotechnology company, akin to a Serono, akin to a Novartis, akin to a Biocon, for example, in India, looking at the cannabinoids, which are the compounds that exist in the cannabis plant in particular, as our first line of investigation, but potentially also extending the work we do to other therapeutic compounds as well. We feel we're only scratching the surface when it comes to cannabis and cannabis compounds, but we also feel that in India, given its rich history of classical medicine and understanding of natural compounds and what the therapeutic potential is, we feel that there is a whole universe of therapeutic use cases to be discovered beyond even the cannabis plant. To bolster our efforts, we are working with leading pharmaceutical research organizations in the country. We understand that it is important, even as a non-technical person myself, but to create an ecosystem, to create an organization that leverages the strengths that we have in the country, which includes some of the best doctors, some of the best researchers, clinicians, and obviously a very, very vast patient population in the country, so that we're able to create safe and effective formulations. So Savikalpa was conceptualized in 2020, beginning 2020, just before the pandemic, on a chance discussion with Professor G.D. Rath, who is the head of oncology of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and he's also the director of the National Cancer Institute, which was set up in 2019 in near Gurgaon. And it was a telling conversation in which he said that on a daily basis, there are about 1,500 odd patients on average suffering from cancer who visit the premier medical institution in the country. And despite their having army of doctors, the entire apparatus of the government, not having to think about a profit motive, they are still only able to treat about 600-700 patients on average. And he said that he feels a sense of shame that despite being the head of the institution, the leading oncologist in the country, he is unable to see about half the patients, or his entire team, the entire institution is only able to see about half the patients that come on a daily basis. And during that conversation, he mentioned that he believes that there is significant potential in cannabis medicine in particular to offer palliative care for patients suffering from cancer. So he himself, in fact, elocuted that there might be a curative potential when it comes to cannabinoid medicine, the active compounds in the cannabis plant. And he suggested that given our understanding of the regulatory ecosystem, as a professional previously I have worked in the public policy space, he said that we should investigate how one can enable patient access, especially for terminal patients, for palliative care, for pain management in particular, so that he could give something to the patients that they are unable to treat on a daily basis, at least so that their end of life, their terminal life, is somewhat better and in less pain. And that really was the genesis of our looking at what the potential of cannabis medicine is, and that is how this whole journey started. When we started investigating the potential of this therapy or this therapeutic pathway in India, we were surprised to find that actually cannabis has existed as a therapeutic ingredient, as one of the principal therapeutic ingredients in Ayurveda, in India's traditional medicine ecosystem. So not just Ayurveda, but Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, these are our traditional medicine systems that have existed for thousands of years, in which cannabis is known as bhang in Hindi, bhanga in Sanskrit, also called primarily Vijaya, which is the medicinal extract of cannabis. And we discovered that in Ayurveda, there is a reference to over 200 classical formulations that have cannabis as a principal therapeutic agent. This was a bit of a mind opener, and we said that, look, there is such a significant understanding and recognition of the powerful therapeutic properties of this plant in our traditional medicine ecosystem. We coupled that with our understanding that India is known as the pharmacy of the world. We have a very developed, modern, scientific pharmaceutical industry. So taking inspiration from the classical medicine, but also trying to see if we can leverage the prowess of India when it comes to modern drug development and drug manufacturing, we thought it would be an interesting effort to marry the two together and see if we can create form factors which have run the entire suite of clinical development. So, going from in vitro studies to animal studies to human clinical studies in the country, but essentially just updating and modernizing what the classical medicine texts said and applying the modern scientific lens to actually creating form factors, medicines, formulations that can be used by a majority of the patient population today. And 90% of the medical cannabis consumed around the world is either smoked or at most vaporized. That might be a medicinal form factor, but it is not a medical form factor. And our approach at Savikalpa Sciences is to try and see if we can create formulations that can be used by people who are cannabis naive, by patients who have never recreationally or otherwise ever accessed cannabis in any form. And can we have therefore form factors and formulations that are effective but below the threshold of intoxication? To achieve this, we need to conduct a battery of clinical development, investigational clinical development for ensuring that there is efficacy, and thereafter ensuring that these form factors are something that can be consumed either in a clinical setting, so for example in a hospital, or at home. A majority of the patients, not just in India but around the world, do not smoke and are cannabis naive, and therefore we wish to bring access to this therapeutic pathway to as many patients as possible. Our effort therefore is to differentiate from what is happening not just in India but around the world, where we are trying to create form factors which are in the form of oral medicine, which could be oils, tablets, capsules, topical medicines, which could be in the form factors of, again, topical applications, sprays, patches, as the case may be, so that patients can actually use these formulations for various use cases depending on what they're suffering from. Speaking specifically about the kinds of conditions that we are focusing on, I think it is relatively well understood that the single largest use case for cannabinoid therapeutics is in pain management. However, we're finding that it is not all kinds of pain that cannabis can treat. And pain is also a spectrum. There are many different kinds of pain. The more we try and understand what the applications are, the more we understand both the use cases as well as the limitations of the medicine. We are seeing that especially when it comes to treating neuropathic pain, neuralgias, for example. So, nerve pain effectively is where cannabinoid formulations are proving especially therapeutic. Now, nerve pains and other non-specific pains, for example, fibromyalgia, sciatica, obviously cancer-related pains, these are some of the conditions in which we're finding there to be significant therapeutic potential, both at a lab level but also at an observational study level with our partner doctors, where we are enabling access to our formulations and recording what the feedback both from the physician as well as the patient's side is. The other area in which there is significant potential application of cannabinoid therapeutics is in neurological conditions. So we're finding very, very significant response when it comes to treating conditions such as insomnia. And this is both sleep onset as well as sleep maintenance. So persons who have an inability to fall asleep as well as persons who have disturbed sleep, who don't wake up rested. Similarly, other neurological conditions, and in particular migraine, we are finding tremendous response when it comes to treating migraine or managing migraine in particular, and the incidence of attacks, so the frequency of attacks that patients who are on cannabis medicine are reporting, is a reduction of about 90-95% in terms of how frequently they suffer a migraine attack. One other interesting therapeutic area when it comes to cannabis medicine is also Parkinson's, which is another neurological condition, especially for symptomatic management of that particular degenerative condition. So the other area where we are finding obviously very significant application of cannabinoid therapeutics is in mental health applications, and in particular managing stress and anxiety. I think most of the patients, especially in North America, who are accessing, or a majority of patients who are accessing CBD tinctures, for example, in the US, are taking it for managing their anxiety and as an alternative to their previous medicine. So to give an example of a topical formulation we have, which has cannabis extract as the hero ingredient, but it also contains several other synergistic herbal extracts so as to enhance the efficacy of that particular formulation. We did in vitro lab studies and compared the efficacy for both anti-inflammatory activity as well as analgesic activity. pain management, in which the positive control was aspirin. As we know, paracetamol or aspirin is the most commonly available OTC salt around the world for pain management. Our in vitro studies established both anti-inflammatory and analgesic activity, which was 39% more efficacious than the positive control, which was aspirin. Our research partners were quite astounded by the results we achieved, suggesting that even a 5-10% increased efficacy is very, very significant. And in this particular case, we achieved a 39% greater efficacy than the positive control in that study. So after having had very successful in vitro results, we conducted animal studies in which the positive control in the study was diclofenac. Now, diclofenac and lidocaine perhaps are two of the most commonly used salts when it comes to topical pain management products. And in our in vivo studies, in our animal studies, once again in the short time frame, which is defined as 0 to 120 minutes, our formulation achieved higher efficacy than some of the most popular, commonly available products in the market. And on a longer time frame, which is 120 to 240 minutes, we achieved equivalent efficacy as compared to a diclofenac formulation, which is commonly available in the market. Again, this has been very, very encouraging, and this gives us the impetus to continue this line of investigation and actually conduct human clinical studies with this formulation as well as several others. The first value-added form factor that we will be releasing in market, branded Swaha, which is our topical value-added pain management formulation, will be for general use, for everyday use, for sprains, for strains, for muscle pulls. It's targeted more at a mass audience, for persons who are active, physically active, sports persons, gym goers who might suffer a muscle pull, a muscle injury. We have compared this product to the best, competition products in the market, the most commonly used products for topical pain management, which could be sprays, which could be balms, which could be creams, as the case may be, products which we're all familiar with, and we have achieved better results. We're very, very confident about the properties of our formulation. It has also got some unique attributes that do not exist, in our view, in any product around the world. It has got both healing and cooling properties, and this is very, very important when it comes to tissue regeneration, especially for tissue injuries, stress injuries, which can happen daily, just by the by, or when engaging in physical activity of some sort. So we're very confident about this product. We feel that there will be large adoption for this product, and we wish to roll this out to as many persons for a daily, everyday use case. And we're very confident that it will find success in market. What we are calling our tier 2 line of products, which have undergone preclinical investigations, preclinical development, on which we have achieved very significant results. These are topical pain management products, and especially with a view of creating non-oral form factors that can be used by patients who are suffering from chronic disorders, in particular osteoarthritis, for example, in which patients, especially elderly patients, suffer from chronic joint pains in their wrists and their knees. So we're thinking that can we create form factors that can be adopted and prescribed to chronic pain sufferers, especially for localized management of their pain, and provide relief at the site of inflammation, at the site of discomfort in particular. We feel that there are many different form factors that we can create on the basis of the formulations that we have developed, and we wish to actually establish human clinical studies using these topical pain management products and establish a phytopharmaceutical regime. So we are making the claim that India has the oldest medical cannabis regime in the world, because cannabis is recognized as a therapeutic agent in what is called the Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia of India. So in our classical pharmacopoeia, cannabis is registered as a therapeutic agent, and therefore medicines containing cannabis are legal in India. In India, cannabis is registered under Schedule E of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. The Drugs and Cosmetic Act, as practitioners would know, governs all the various compounds, therapeutic compounds in the country. Now, Schedule E is a list of substances that should be taken under medical supervision. The specific advisory is that any medicines made from compounds or materials registered in Schedule E of the Drugs and Cosmetic Act must be taken or should be taken under medical supervision. This is different to Schedule H. Schedule H defines all the drugs that necessarily must be only taken post a prescription from a medical practitioner. or for example narcotics, NRX products, which have a completely separate schedule. So it is important to recognize that cannabis medicines in India are not a narcotic substance, and neither are they under Schedule H. However, because Schedule E suggests that cannabis should be taken under medical supervision, the formulations that we are making, especially only the oral formulations, have to be through a prescription route. So only when doctors prescribe the medicine can patients access the oral formulations. Important to also note that topical formulations containing Schedule E substances do not require a prescription. They can be, they can be prescribed obviously, but they can be sold over the counter, or patients can access them directly through a point of sale or a pharmacy. We have also partnered with cannabis clinics just to understand the use case of cannabis, medical cannabis, in countries like Canada and Australia in particular. And we are getting sort of large data from our partner clinics to understand what the various therapeutic applications, what the patient access, what the patient use case is. But also importantly to understand what some of the contraindications are. So it is important again for physicians to understand that certain patients who might be suffering from mental health disorders, for example schizophrenia in particular, would be contraindicated. Again, patients who suffer from hypotension, low blood pressure, cannabis medicine would be contraindicated. Similarly, patients suffering from coronary heart disease, physicians would need to exercise discretion when prescribing cannabis medicine, because there can be transient effects, in particular tachycardia. So you have to look at the individual patient profile, but also understand that there are certain comorbidities that patients may be suffering from, in which case cannabis medicine may not be appropriate treatment for them. We have conducted safety studies, both acute safety studies and repeat dose safety studies, just to understand what the safety profile of cannabis molecules are. And very interestingly, and we have these results available both on our website, where we can share them with practicing physicians. The safety profile of cannabis is much higher than some of the most commonly available products found even in the kitchen. For example, we were not able to establish an LD50 value for cannabis, which means that it is actually absolutely safe. So for chronic pain management, we're all aware that opioids are perhaps the most commonly prescribed medicines, and in fact there is an overprescription of opioids in many markets, including in particular North America and the US, and this is leading to this opioid crisis. We are finding that cannabinoids are a successful alternative and a replacement therapy for a lot of chronic conditions in which patients normally would be prescribed opioids. One of the things that we're doing is, because obviously the limitation is in one-on-one interactions, we can share a significant amount of our learnings with doctors, with physicians, with practitioners. But what we're putting together is something we're calling the Savikalpa Academy. This is an online platform dedicated for healthcare practitioners in particular. So it would be an access control information platform where we are aggregating all global studies on cannabis-based R&D, cannabis-based formulation development, and any published research that exists, whether at an academic level or from all global journals of repute. And through the Savikalpa Academy, through this platform, we're trying to create an science-backed and science-first platform, especially for doctors and for medical practitioners, to be able to understand all aspects of cannabis medicine, cannabis science, and cannabis R&D. We've been reaching out one-on-one to top medical practitioners in the country across a host of specializations where we feel that there is a therapeutic application of cannabis, and we are attempting to socialize an understanding of this category of medicine with the best medical practitioners in the country. We intend to broad base this because there is a limit in terms of how many people you can reach, obviously, in one-on-one interactions, and therefore we intend going forward to run a monthly series of continuing medical education programs, both virtual as well as physical, in which we aggregate a larger number of doctors, where we present the R&D that we have been doing with our partner labs in the country, but also bring in for, let's say, a presentation, some global leading practitioners who have adopted cannabinoid medicine, cannabinoid therapeutics into their practice. Those who have seen several thousands of patients, and therefore who can share their clinical learnings with our partner doctor networks in the country. The challenge when it comes to establishing a new therapeutic pathway is that you need to build confidence at the level of both doctors as well as patients. So while it is important that we focus on R&D and on our scientific studies so as to be able to build the support of especially leading practitioners, our effort is not to go out and just sell products at a cheap price point across the country to any physical practitioner, but to really establish the science of cannabis, the science of cannabis medicine, and on the basis of the R&D and the results we achieve, to socialize that with the medical practitioner community. So that is one focus. But at the same time, we thought it is important for us to build awareness of this category at the level of patients, at the level of the general population, for which we thought it is important for us to build certain brand values. So while we are very much in the medical, in the pharmaceutical space, we thought it important for us to have a certain brand identity, and which is why we focused a lot on our branding, on our design language, on our packaging, so as to build a certain relatable identity so that patients also recognize what Savikalpa Sciences is. They are able to understand what our therapeutic medical line, which we are calling Shunyata, is, and so that over a period of time, as more and more persons adopt this, as more and more companies, not just here but around the world, come into establishing cannabinoid therapeutics and cannabinoid medicine, Savikalpa Sciences stands out because of the brand identity that it has developed with patients as being a pioneer in this pathway.